Hi, it's Leah. This practice is designed to give you a few tips and cues to integrate into your own practice to protect your knees during vinyasa flows. Let's get started. So let's start by getting into hero's pose, virasana, and definitely use a block. So a couple ways that you can use a block to protect your knees is if they can't get into complete flexion. So right here, you could place a block in between your calves and your tush. I think it's actually more comfortable if you have a bolster or like a pillow. Another option is placing the block in between your thighs and bringing your sitting bones to sit directly on your thighs to again take some pressure off the flexion in your knees. So go ahead, find a comfortable pose to come into, something that's comfortable and doesn't have any pressure on the knees. And start by placing your hands on your eyes and closing your eyes or softly gazing on a point in front of you. Let's take a few moments to connect our mind with our breath, with our body, and rolling out our mat today. So take a few easy, deep cycles of breath and start to try and lengthen your inhales and your exhales to a count of 4. So it'd be something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. So go ahead and continue doing that on your own. As you lengthen your breath, root down through the tops of your feet and your shins and your sitting bones. Gently stack your head over your chest, over your pelvis, and lift up out through the crown of your head and the tops of your ears. When you're ready, softly flutter your eyes open or move your gaze off of that non-moving point and come to a tabletop position. So tabletop position, your hands are going to be outer shoulders distance apart and your feet and your knees are going to be hips distance apart. Right now, we want our toes untucked and our fingers pressing firmly into the ground. From here, start to do a little bit of wrist warm up. So just rock forward and backward, bringing weight up into your wrists and gently backing off. You can start to deepen these movements. Now, pull your palms off the ground. It's a little bit difficult. You might want to come back in your stance so there's not as much weight over your wrists. But do these little hand raise ups to start to build warmth and strength throughout the 4 corners of your hands. A lot of times our index fingers really like to roll up during flow. So this is a practice right here to help ground your fingers in. Flip your hands over, place the tops of your hands down, fingertips pointing towards each other, and really gently now bring your weight into your wrist, rocking from side to side. So similar to what we were doing before, but now just kind of in a different direction. Still your body's rocking, and then one at a time, peel your wrists off the floor, keeping your knuckles on the floor. If you can do them one at a time, start to experiment with 2 at a time. Again, you don't want any discomfort, so if there's too much weight in the wrist, back off. Bring your hips back in space to reduce the amount of weight. Okay, so do any little wrist wiggles you need. Shake your little fingies out. Replace your hands. And now start to flex your toes and sit back to your heels. So you're just rocking back and forth, bringing a little bit of weight and pressure into the bottom of your feet to wake them up. Okay, so now a bit of cat-cow, but be very careful with your lower back and your neck. So really start the movement with your breath. So as you inhale, broaden your chest and gently tilt your pelvis and your neck. As you exhale, round, round, round up through the spine. Release your neck. Drop your tailbone towards the floor. And continue the cycle of movement, aligning with your breath for a few cycles of breath. As you bring the breath into your spine and you start to warm up with these cat-cow poses, feel free to introduce some creative movement. So maybe you roll your hips. If you are doing any little creative variations, try and make sure that you're doing them on both sides. Maybe you kind of move front to back, side to side a bit. Really just trying to loosen up your shoulders and your hips and your spine. After you've taken these few cycles of breath and cat-cow and creative cat-cow, walk your hands back to your thighs and gently sit back onto your toes to give them one nice more little stretch. Make sure you're really pressing all 10 toes into the ground. Stack your rib cage over your pelvis and your big bowling ball head of your rib cage, and really have beautiful alignment right here in the spine to start the practice. Okay, come forward on your hands, maybe wiggle your feet out and make your way to a standing position at the top of your mat. Once you're at the top of your mat, check in with your feet. Feet are hips distance apart and parallel. Knees are stacking over ankles, and your hip points are stacking straight above this line as well. Engage your core, lengthen your tailbone down, soften your front ribs in as you squeeze your shoulder blades together on your chest. Lengthen up through the back of your neck and reach up into the sky with the crown of your head. Find a slow and steady inhale and exhale. Even here in Tadasana, try and remember not to hyperextend your knees. Push into your big toe mound to bring a soft bend into your knees, even here in Tadasana. On your next inhale, raise your hands over your head, Urdhva Hastasana. Melt your shoulder blades onto your back. Try and really imprint this feeling for today's practice, keeping your shoulder blades attached to your back and your chest broad and open. Reach up through your fingertips, engage your core. Exhale, hinge forward at your hips, find forward fold. Forward fold. Be careful again not to hyperextend your knees. This is the beginning of the practice, so it makes complete sense for everyone to have bent knees here as we work to warm up our hamstrings. Inhale, halfway lift with the body. Remember, plug your shoulder blades onto your back, broad chest as you lengthen out through the crown of your head. Exhale, place your hands firmly down and step back in to high plank pose. In high plank, your hands are outer shoulders distance apart. Your chest and your collarbones are wide. Your shoulder blades are settled on your back. You're engaging throughout your entire core. So your back muscles, your core muscles, your inner and your outer hips are helping hold the weight of your pelvis. Your legs are squeezing together through the midline, and your toes and your heels are just as engaged as your hands. Exhale slowly all the way down to the ground. Untuck your toes and gently, first plug your pelvis into the ground, plug the tops of your feet into the ground, and then gently use your breath and inhale your chest off the ground. Find baby cobra. You may need to tilt your chin down a little bit to lengthen through the back of your neck. Squeeze your shoulder blades together so that you have nice broad collarbones. Don't dump into your low back. Anchor down through the pelvis and the tops of your feet. Push strongly into your hands, engage your core, rise, your hips rise up, flip your feet, and find your first downward facing dog. We will be here for a few cycles of breath, so go ahead, pedal your heels out, stretch out your calves, stretch out your hamstrings. As you're doing this, make sure your index fingers are rooting into the ground and your biceps are wrapping close up next to your ears, facing towards the sky. Again, keeping your knees bent is going to help protect them. And really the sensation that we're looking for is our heels to be yearning towards the floor. They don't have to touch. On your next inhale, look towards your hands, start to shift your body forwards in space, and then step forward to the front of your mat. Inhale, broad chest, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Place your hands on your hips, root into your feet, bend your knees gently, and rise up into Tadasana. Inhale, arms overhead. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, broad chest. Place your hands strongly down into the floor. Step back into high plank and hold. Get your shoulder girdle stable and even. Melt your shoulders away from your ears and then lower halfway down to Chaturanga. Hold. Gently all the way down to the floor. Whew. Untuck your toes. Inhale, baby cobra or upward facing dog. Lift your hips and your knees off the ground. Exhale, squeeze your core, lift your hips into the air, Roll over your toes or flip your feet and find downward facing dog. Send your inner thighs back in space as you lengthen your tailbone to the sky. Find a few steady, even breaths. And then inhale, step to the top of your mat. Exhale, forward fold. Place your hands on your hips. Root into your feet, bend your knees, and rise up into Tadasana. Inhale, arms overhead. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, step back to plank, lower to chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. 5 cycles of breath. Look to your hands. Inhale, step to the top of your mat. Place your hands on your hips, bend your knees, and rise up into Tadasana. Find a slow and steady, deep cycle of breath. Reconnect your breath to your body. Feel all of the warmth and energy that we've generated through these sun salutations, Surya Namaskar A. Okay. Sit deep into the chair of Utkatasana. Graze your fingertips across the ground. Bend your knees really generously. Send your hips backwards in space. Pull your belly up as much as you can off of your thighs. And then raise your arms. Squeeze your legs together. Root a bit more into your heels. Lengthen your tailbone down. Soften your front ribs in. Melt your shoulders away from your ears. And if you can, maybe bring a little back bend into your upper back. Forward fold. Ooh, let it all go. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, plant your hands. Step back to plank. Lower all the way to the ground. Inhale, baby cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog, and step your left foot forward and rise up to warrior one. Front foot is grounding deep into the ground. Rooting deep into the ground. Knee is stacking over ankle. Pull your front hip back in space. Your back foot is at a 45-degree angle and is a bit externally rotated. So what you want to do really in this pose is to squeeze your midline together and rise up through the pelvis. Keep that nice and tight. Then settle back into a 90-degree angle. Parallelize. Straighten your shoulders forward in your mat and then raise your arms overhead. Make sure that you are keeping your shoulder blades on your back and softening your front ribs in. You want the back bend to be in your upper back, not in your lower back or your neck. Inhale, straighten your leg. Pop your back foot forward a step. Shift it a little bit more towards the short side of your mat, more like a 60-degree angle. Bring your hips to neutral. Grab your props and find pyramid pose. So, in pyramid pose, your spine is going to be neutral until you reach the 90-degree angle. Then it can be in flexion. But you don't want your spine to be in flexion up here. So if you need, bring the ground up. Make your blocks taller so that you can find that neutral spine. The other thing is this front right knee really wants to hyperextend, even for people who can't really hyperextend it. So a couple of things. You can place a block here to physically prevent it from hyperextending. You can soften generously if you need through the back of the knee. You can press really into that front toe mound. That brings some softness into the back of the knee. In triangle pose, you still, in this neutral spine, want your shoulder blades plugged onto your back and open broad collarbone. Okay, bend that front knee, root into the ground with your feet, rise back up to Virabhadrasana 1, and then place your hands on the ground, moving your blocks out of the way to step back into high plank pose. Lower all the way down to the ground. Inhale into a back bend of your choice. Exhale, roll over your feet into downward facing dog. Inhale, bring your right foot forward and place your back foot at a 60-degree angle. I'm sorry, a 45-degree angle. Bend your front knee to a 90-degree. Root into your feet. Rise up into warrior 1. Squeeze your legs together. Pull your right hip back in space. Straighten your straighten your front leg. Whew. Bring your left leg in a bit so you can have a bit more balance. And with a neutral spine, hinge forward at your hips. Remembering to keep this knee at a slight angle, using whatever props are best suited for your body in this moment. Root down through your big toe. Just bring softness into the back of your knee. Bend your front knee, ground down through your feet, rise back up to warrior 1. Place your hands on the ground, move your blocks out of the way, step back into plank, flow through the vinyasa of your choice, push back, and we'll all meet in downward facing dog. Take one inhale and exhale, then look towards your hands, step towards the front of your mat, place your hands on your hips, root into your feet, and rise on up into Tadasana. Again, sit down into chair pose. Squeeze your legs together, lengthen your tailbone down, soften your front ribs in, plug your shoulder blades onto your back, and raise your arms up above your head. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, broad chest. Exhale, step back to plank, lower all the way to the ground. Inhale, baby cobra. Exhale, push back, find downward facing dog, and then step forward with your right foot. Pivot your back foot so that it's parallel with the short edge of your mat, and rise up into warrior two with your arms extended at your shoulders. Check in with your feet. Front heel should be bisecting your back foot. Front knee is at a 90-degree angle, stacking over your ankle. Now in this position, be really wary of this front knee wobbling in or out. So you really want to work to engage this thigh and squeeze in as you ground down through your back foot. Arms are up at shoulder height, extending out through your fingertips. Gaze softly over your front hand. Slowly straighten your front leg. Lengthen through your side body. Drop your front arm and tilt to find Utthita Trikonasana, extended triangle pose. So here, we again need to be worried about protecting the knee from hyperextension. You can use the block in the same way in terms of the break for your actual knee, or you can use the block for your hand to bring weight out of your knee so that you can have a little bit of flexion in it. Your block can be on the inside or the outside, any height that's helpful for you. Because really, this isn't a hand balancing pose. This is a pose where you want root rebound. You want the energy between your feet to come up and swell up so that you're extended in space. Bend your knee, find warrior two, spiral your hands to the ground, move your block out of the way, step back into plank, lower all the way down to the ground, broad chest. Inhale, baby cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. On your next inhale, lift to your hands. Bring your left foot forward. Pivot your right foot into warrior two footing. Rise up into warrior two with your arms at shoulder height. Make sure your booty isn't sticking out like this. Don't forget, as you keep your knee tracking over your ankle, making sure it's not caving, that you aren't over compensating in your booty. So keep the booty tucked, keep your knee stacking over your ankle, root through your feet so you can feel the energy come up through you. Gaze over your front hand. Virabhadrasana 2. Slowly straighten your front leg. Lengthen out through the sides of your waist. Drop your front arm and tilt forward and find Trikonasana. Again, use blocks as you might want or need. Protect that knee, root into your big toe, soften through the back of your knee. Engage your thigh muscles. Use this whole leg apparatus to hold their weight, not in the knee. Bend your front knee, rise to warrior two. Spiral your hands down to the ground, move your block, step back into plank, lower through the vinyasa of your choice. We'll all meet in downward facing dog. Look towards the front of your mat, walk forward, find a forward fold. Root through your feet, hands to your waist, rise up, Tadasana. All right. Reconnect your breath to your body as we come to our final sequence. Inhale, arms overhead. Exhale, engage the core, hinge forward. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, walk your feet back to downward facing dog. From downward facing dog, raise your right foot in space. Three-legged dog. Your hips are still parallel and neutral, so don't open your hip. Lengthen out through your heel. All the way down through your hands grounding down. Bend your knee, bring that leg forward, and place your knee at a 45-degree angle with your toes pointed. So what you don't want is basically to take your knee, which is a pure hinge joint, and go like this, right? That's kind of what my knee looks like right now. We want my knee to remain the hinge joint. So make sure it's the hinge joint. Stack it so that there's no torque. You should have no sensation in your knee. And then you point your little toe, and as you're able, you rise up onto your fingertips, or you rise up really by finding that abduction. Squeeze your inner thighs together and rise up into space. Keep your shoulder blades on your back. Prop options. Slide this one under your tush to find some more stability. The purpose of pigeon is to get a stretch in your hip flexors and for spinal extension, so we back bend. If you're working into the back bend, start with a strap. Loop the strap on your back foot and utilize the length of your strap to slowly bring your hands and your toes together. Of course, this takes time. You need to listen to your body and be gentle. But again, squeeze the inner thighs. Find the internal lift. Engage your core, soften your ribs, plug your shoulder blades on your back. Gently let go of your strap. Gently remove your block. Replace your hands. Step back into plank pose, and then directly into downward facing dog. Whew. Cycle out your feet a little bit. And then other side. Inhale. Raise your left leg up into space. Gosh, this feels so good. Whew. Don't open your hips. Keep your hips neutral. Lengthen out through your heel. Root down through your hands. Draw your knee forward in space. Align it to the 45-degree angle. Be careful of twerking the knee. Remember the pure hinge joint. So realign the knee. Tuck the toe. Squeeze your thighs together and raise your arms overhead. Use a block under your hip and use a strap to include the thigh stretch. Again, protect your knees. Sides are different. Obviously this side I'm not as good on. And so Honestly, I shouldn't even be mucking with that, I can tell. So know your body. Stop where you need to. Recognize sides are different. Okay, remove your block. Gently remove your props. Because safety is first. Okay. Come back to plank. Nice broad chest. Lift your hips. Walk your feet forward. And let it go. In Uttanasana, cross your arms. Wiggle side to side. Send your sitting bones up into the air. Wiggle your neck. Release any tension that you're feeling along your spine. Gently unwind your arms. Replace your hands. Walk your feet back to downward facing dog. Find one more beautiful downward facing dog. Hips rising up into the air. Beautiful stretch. Bend your knees, place them on the ground, cross your ankles, and roll back over your feet. And come to the middle of your mat. Oh my God. I'm going blind from how much sweat is in my eyes. It was crazy. Okay, so we're going to do a forward fold, but I want everyone to either put a block under their push or under their knees. So you're gonna find Dandasana, which is staff pose, right? So that is the seated version of Tadasana and Chaturanga. So feet are flexed. The middle of your ankles, you can draw a line into your knees. Your legs are engaged. Your knees come up into your hip points. Your whole abdominal cavity is super duper engaged. Your front ribs are soft. Your shoulders are plugged on your back. Ears are lifting away from your shoulders. Crown of your head up into the sky. Okay, Dandasana. Now get a block and either put the block like one underneath each knee, which is kind of cool, or put a block under your tush, right? All of these things are really good. I am going to be weird / creative and grab these slippers and put these underneath my knees. So this really helps the knees not hyperextend, which can be very, very easy in this pose. So again, find Dandasana. Really focus on a nice broad chest that's stacked directly above your hips. Now from here, grab your strap again, loop it around the outside of your feet. And instead of feeling like you're hinging forward at the hips, I want you to pull your chest towards your hands. So this whole time, you still have that broad Tadasana chest, okay? So you might, if you have flexibility, be able to move your hands up along your strap. You might be able to hang on to your feet, but really make sure there's that nice slight bend in your knees, because even though I'm super warm and I'm pretty dang flexible, you know, I have tight hamstrings and I don't want to hyperextend. I want to be healthy to them. So anyways, I really learned what a beautiful use props can be. in my yoga practice, and how in some ways backing off of where I feel like I'm flexible and using a prop instead actually kind of brings more to my practice. It enlivens it more, I think. So as you inhale, lengthen. As you exhale, soften. Gently engage your core, slowly rise out of this pose. Okay, remove your prop beneath your knees, bend your knees, lean back and do a little bit of windshield wiper with the knee. Okay, so from here, take your right foot over to the left side of your mat. Oh my goodness, it is so embarrassing. Okay, well, I could tell you what I had for breakfast, but that would be gross and I'm getting distracted. So anyways, foot is flexed. It is towards the left side of your mat, and it's coming here now to a 90-degree angle with your knee, because you remember what we talked about with the pure hinge joint, right? We want our knee to be like this, and we don't want it to be like that. So to prevent that, we're just gonna totally take the back stretch out of it. Oh, you know what? This one is not happy. I gotta do this one first. Okay, sorry, doing my left leg first. Okay, so pure hinge joint, knee safe, hip on the ground. This leg, we're not even gonna mess with, because forward pigeon is about your outer hip. If you want to have that hip flexor stretch, and if your outer hip flexibility allows, you can work to straighten this leg and to bring it under you and have the hip flexor stretch. But look, we already did upright pigeon, so we don't need the hip flexor stretch, we need the outer stretch. So anyways, keep your back knee at a 90-degree angle, and as your flexibility allows, you can work that towards straight. You're gonna wanna bring a front fold to this pose. So hinge forward at your hips. Again, use blocks, bring the ground up. We don't really wanna be straining our neck in this pose. Again, broad chest. So what I like to do particularly is I just put, oh gosh, yeah, I love that. I put my forehead on a block, and that really allows me to just melt into the pose in a way that I couldn't when I have like all this tension in my neck. I just feel it. Anyways, beautiful forward fold slash deer. I'm sorry, forward fold pigeon slash deer pose. What there today? Soften your jaw, blow out your lips, make a crazy face. A lot of times when we stretch our hips, we clench our jaws, so it's a nice thing to just loosen your face up as we're slowly winding down in this practice. Okay, push yourself back up, bring your back leg forward, move your props as needed, swing your feet around, and then find deer first on the other side. Again, remember, sides are different, so you might not need the same props as you did before, or you might need the same props but in a different way. So gently lower yourself down. Again, we're all about this nice, beautiful, broad chest. So if you can't come all the way down to elbows, work with your hands and keeping a nice chest, broad, and slowly folding over that hip. Because again, the purpose of this pose is for the hip stretch. It's not a neck stretch. It doesn't matter if you can do this. So anyhow, find your version of forward folding pigeon or deer that is really restful and a beautiful opener for your hip after all of that nice work that you just did. slowly press yourself up. Engage your core as you bring your legs around to protect your lower back. And at this point, I just invite you to take a few moments to do whatever stretches your body feels like it needs. So for some of us, this might be a twist. For others, it might be like a happy baby type of pose. For me, I'm really wanting to do a quick little cobbler's pose, but again, remember our focus on knees. So with whatever you're doing, use props so that you can really feel the experience and the purpose of the pose rather than just finding that aesthetic look. Okay, as we've done our last stretches, slowly make your way to your back. And stretch out and however feels comfortable for you today. Our knees are so important to movement in our daily life, to stability in our daily life. It's really, really important as yoga practitioners that our practice helps strengthen and support our bodies and its activities and hobbies, rather than aggravate or create slow chronic injuries over time. While yoga can be really restorative and rejuvenating, it's super important to focus on alignment, muscular engagement, and all of these little things that prevent our joints and our ligaments and our tendons and our muscles so that we can practice. Slowly lengthen your breath. Again, try to find a 4 count for both your inhale and your exhale. Continue to breathe at your own pace and let the practice absorb into your body. Slowly begin to flutter your fingers and your toes. Squinch up your face and let it go a couple times. Roll to one side that feels right for you today. And stop. Don't sit up. Slowly push yourself up to a seated position. Again, use a prop to protect your knees. If you're coming into Sukhasana, it's a little bit different than Hero's Pose that we did at the beginning. You really want to have your hips a little bit higher than your knees, so it's great to sit on a prop when you come into Sukhasana. Gently place your hands down over your knees. Thank yourself for taking time for your practice today. Thank yourself for being interested in protecting your knees. And thank your body and your mind for carrying you through every day.